Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. Are you chilled? Are you resting? Are you in a firm position? I ask because you need to sit down with Robert Island in the background. Pay attention to this very closely, folks. The ruling national party in South Africa, the African National Congress, has once again taken a step to increase its power and silence its critics. What am I talking about? No, it's not the expropriation without compensation constitutional amendment, which has died for the moment. Yet the African National Congress has vowed to bring it back and use this method to frighten South Africans. Well, the expropriation without compensation constitutional amendment was not about land theft. That's what people talk about and focus on. The true purpose of expropriation without compensation was twofold. Number one, it gives the government the power to take your property at will, whenever they want. Property isn't simply land, ladies and gentlemen. It's your cars, your clothing, your jewelry, your stocks, your bonds, your retirement accounts, your banking accounts, whatever they choose to. And in the future, the government of the day could and would use expropriation without compensation to cow political opposition. Should you have the audacity, the temerity to raise your head up like a meerkat above the surface and make legitimate complaints or ask legitimate questions about the government of the day, they're likely to use this immoral method to frighten you into silence or to simply impoverish you and punish you for protesting or speaking up against the government. And that's what's happening with the latest legislation, which shockingly has now been signed into law by none other than Cyril Ramaphosa himself. Signed in February, it went into effect on the 1st of March. The Films and Publications Amendment Act of February, taking effect 1 March 2022. Now, this significantly changed the way that films, video games, and certain publications are distributed. The Film and Publications Board said in a briefing that occurred just on the 3rd of March, 2 days ago. Now, they claim that this move is about reflecting the movement away from physical distribution in cinemas, where people still go to watch movies, and home DVDs to the online space, such as streaming and social media. According to the Film Publications Board, the Amendment Act is set to transform the FPB completely, expanding its mandate and migrating it from a simple classification authority to a fully fledged regulator with legitimate powers to issue and renew licenses or certificates, accredit distributors, and impose fines in cases of non-compliance. Now, pay very close attention to what I'm saying here, folks. We have a motion picture rating agency here in the United States. So when a film comes out, they look at it, and people voluntarily submit their films to it, and they make a determination for a rating. Those ratings are important, and they affect who can attend it. So, for instance, if you have a PG, parental guidance, that restricts the age of those who can attend it. If you have a G rating for general audiences, and children can attend. R is restricted even further. Now, these restrictions depend on the amount of violence, nudity, profanity, and things like that of adult nature. That's a reasonable system, a voluntary system for film producers to sign up for. But it affects films, not online content, not your vacation videos on Instagram, not your silly moments on TikTok, not your view and opinion on YouTube or Facebook. But this bill now gives a new bureaucratic agency the authority, and I say new, not that it's a new agency, but it is a newly empowered bureaucratic agency rather than simply a voluntary method to classify films produced in South Africa. This will attack all content creators. This should be a chilling message to liberty-loving patriots around the planet, ladies and gentlemen. This is a shocking, shocking change. This is what this act does. Some key changes in the legislation say the act will give the Film Production Board, Producers Board, the power to regulate almost all online content published in South Africa, not just movies and television it is previously regulated. So let me put this in perspective for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm safe sitting here at the moment in the United States, but if I lived in South Africa, in the mother city of Cape Town, which you see in the backdrop there, and I was recording this video there, I would have to be licensed by this body in order to produce this content as a private citizen, and then I would have to submit it to them. Now, I offer to you the following. This is a country that has over 250,000 cases unable to be pursued criminally because they've got over 250,000 or 400,000 DNA samples that they can't process. 2.5 years behind in processing DNA samples. They have one driver's license printing machine in the entire country of 60 million people. One machine manufactured in Germany, and it was down. They're 2.5 years behind in issuing driver's license. And now they're going to punish people who don't renew their driver's license, even though it's impossible to do, although they claim it's back online now. So you're supposed to trust a country that when they tried to criminalize the possession of firearms, which are allowed in South Africa, they did so by forcing people to register firearms that had never in the history of South Africa been required to be registered. And if you didn't do so, you were in violation of law. So when law-abiding citizens went to comply with the law over a dozen years ago, they found that police stations didn't have the forms, or they gave them the forms and they didn't process them. And then they were suddenly criminals in their own country for simply following the law. And we're supposed to believe that this incompetent, corrupt, juvenile racketeering operation known as the African National Congress and its deep state cabal of incompetent boobs in a bureaucracy are going to be able to timely receive, review, and issue a clearance approval for all videos on social media. This is absolutely insane. It's never going to happen. They don't have the capacity to do it. This is an overreach by a socialist Marxist. It's our time to eat corrupt, racketeering government. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. Folks, what they'll do here is this will be a law that will be used capriciously and selectively. It will be used to prosecute and go after people who say things badly about the ANC and its governance. I guarantee you that it won't be used to prosecute Julius Malema or other race hustling politicians in South Africa when they publish content on social media and publish videos. It will be selectively applied, just like McCain-Feingold was selectively applied to persecute and prosecute an immigrant of color, Dinesh D'Souza, while allowing Americans who openly and flagrantly violate campaign finance laws, leftists, like someone named Rosie, left to their own devices, just like the rioters and looters and murderers in the summer of 2020 were allowed to destroy America's metropolitan areas because they served the left's needs. Yet those who showed up for a demonstration and foolishly walked into the Capitol building were convicted and some sentenced to 41 months for the misdemeanor of disrupting an official proceeding. That's what will happen with this law. This is ludicrous and asinine. All online distributors will be required to register with and submit all content to the FPB for classification. There you go. So my peers in South Africa produce content for YouTube are now screwed. If they produce a video today, they're in violation of this law. Will South African authorities pursue them for their violation? This is immoral, and it's a violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of which South Africa is a signatory. Now, alternatively, online distributors will have to apply to the FPB's Council for Self-Classification Accreditation or for approval to use the classification ratings issued by a foreign or international classification authority. Yeah, so you're beholden to a corrupt bureaucracy. No person may expose through any medium, including the internet and social media, private sexual photograph, revenge pornography. Well, that's actually one good addition to the act. Any person knowingly distributes hate speech in any medium, which amounts to propaganda for war, incites imminent violence, or advocates hate speech, shall be guilty of an offense. I don't know, like Julius Malema singing "Kill the Boer" and publishing it online, exhorting his followers to burn the Boer down. Yeah, something tells me that won't be prosecuted. If an internet access provider has knowledge that its services are being used for the hosting or distribution of child pornography, propaganda for war, incitement of imminent violence, or advocating hatred based on identifiable group characteristic, it shall immediately remove this content or be subject to a fine. Now, that's not unreasonable. But the problem I have here is, what is hate speech? It is not defined. Hate speech is whatever the government decides to pursue for hate speech. Ladies and gentlemen, this should frighten people to their core. This is a Marxist government that doesn't hide its disdain for civil liberties and free speech. And this is the path that the developed world is on, whether it's the penal colony of Australia, where people are imprisoned in concentration camps for testing negative for a certain virus, but having been exposed to it, threatened with fines and imprisonment if they don't voluntarily go, and then mistreated, misfed, threatened with being drugged if they don't shut up, and then losing jobs, and no one cares. Or it's the unconscionable violation of human rights by injecting people in Austria, demanding the same in New Zealand. That has been overturned by the High Court there to no fanfare in the media. The South African state is still also looking at mandatory jabs as well. This is a government out of control, a government that has betrayed the liberation struggle, a liberation movement that claims credit in the mantle liberation, which it was only a small part of. yet claims credit as if no one else existed, as if the Pan-African Congress, the Black Sash Movement, Helen Suzman, Steve Biko didn't exist. Oh, they recognize Steve Biko, but they fraudulently claim the Black Consciousness Movement as an ANC effort when they had nothing to do with it. They also claim the mantle of the Freedom Charter of 1955, for which they were merely a signatory, written largely by South African Jews, not ANC stalwarts. This is a party that needs to be exposed for the fraud that it is, along with its junior little militant armed wing, the Economic Freedom Fighters, and their race-hustling leader who exposed himself in a trial over the past 2 weeks. Folks, if you're not a subscriber, please become a subscriber. Just push the button right down there. Push that button and join the channel. It's absolutely free. And be sure to give us a like on the video and leave a comment behind if you'd like. Once again, this should chill you to the bone, whether you live in South Africa or elsewhere in the semi-free world of 2022. Thanks a lot, folks. God bless and good night.